Hi, folks. So I have a situation here where I am in a repository. It's supposed to simulate a web application, but there is no UI code. Instead, we have some Axios calls that the UI code would use to communicate with the backend. So the real purpose of the repository is to show an example of consumer-driven contract testing, and I'm adding Cypress to compare and contrast like how that would be different. So if we had a UI application, maybe we'll be interacting with the UI, and those UI interactions would invoke some calls to the backend API, but that doesn't happen. And here, if we use Cypress as a API client to talk to the backend, we're not even involving the application. So in this example, there was a need to somehow use these source code functions through Cypress to do backend calls. Right? So it's kind of contrived, but the problem and the solution of it is interesting. And I don't see it too often, and it can get confusing for people. So of course, we have to wrap these source code functions in SciTask. And then we have a SciTask file, then we import them there. So SciTask gets tricky, and that's why I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So if we have, let's say, fetch movies, or yeah, fetch movies, maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, a single argument. When there is a single argument, everything's easy, right? So you would be like a side task, uh, fetch movies. Actually, no, it's just an object. So you're saying, hey, this side task object is going to take the fetch movies function, and everything's going to be fine. A single argument, um, the side task version of that. So if we look at the side task version of that, I believe I'm putting those right here. I'm wrapping these in commands. So let's just close these ones. They don't matter. Um, I'm wrapping them in commands to make it easy to use. But if it's the side task, when we use in the test, it's going to take a single argument. The reason I'm wrapping it in a command is just make it seamless, right? Like, don't even worry about side tasks, just pass in whatever arguments are necessary, and then it's just going to work. And so single argument, no problem, everything's fine. So let's say fetch single movie. That one is taking two arguments. So what do we do in this kind of a situation? So let's just do it the same way. And side task object is going to be that. The function we're passing is that. So we can just shorthand it like that. But it's going to say something with the arguments. I'm not happy. Right? So now the pattern here is side task is it can take a single argument, but um, you can take a single argument and but that argument can be an object. So that's how we pass in multiple arguments. So we can say, hey, so here is going to be the side task version of things. So it's just going to be a function that has a URL and an ID, and the types of those things are going to be a string URL string, and then no, no, and then the other one is going to be a number, okay, and then that's going to return the real one. So the top one is basically your side task, and the bottom one is the real one. Right. So here's the real function, like the way we would call this one, and here is the side task taking an object as an argument. So a single argument, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do anything. If it's a multi-argument thing, then it has to be an object. And the way we use it is we're passing in an object just like we specified here, URL and ID to fetch a single movie. And when we use it in the test, it's even more nicely abstracted. So this is going to be something like this. Right now I have, so we have get all movies. Yeah, so get all movies is fetch movies. I'm trying to match the server side of things, so that's why it's a little bit different. And then get movie by ID is that one, right? So the way we use it is, see, get movie by ID. Yeah, the URL is a predetermined argument, so I don't have to pass that in, right? It's going to be the API URL, and then we're just passing in one argument. So if it was like two arguments, we would just enter the whatever URL here, right? It would be like that. But let's see how this works. So we would have to start the backend here, clear all this, and PM run start. And then here, PM run, sorry, open local. So the right side is the API, the left side is this application I'm on. So we're just making sure the tasks are all good so far. So if you look at the functions here, what they called, uh, my browser is acting up, but see, the first one is, let's see, the tools. Uh, when my shortcuts don't work, I am more tools, the tools. Okay, so let's see what this one returned. So yeah, so empty array, there's nothing, and then I guess this one return something. So let's go to the back end and see if we can just quickly add something to see. That's going to be a little more realistic. Yeah, my laptop is not very, very fast right now. I guess it's on battery, that's why. Okay, so here's the backend stuff. And then, and this is the REST client, very simple. And then the heartbeat is there. Let's just add a movie. So there's like one item in the array. So it's going to give us that. All right. So the Cypress tests will also give us the same thing. If we rerun it, the result of fetch one. So it gets that one movie, and then get movie by ID gets us that successfully. So in summary, when we are wrapping source code functions in, they have multiple arguments. We can specify how the task is supposed to look. So it has to be an object, it has to take a single argument, it has to be an object, and you can specify the type of that, just replicating whatever we have here. And then that returns the original function, however it's being invoked. Right? So I mean, you can name this one differently, but don't do that. And then as a third step, you can further abstract that in the command, so it's even more easier to use. So we have it just like this here, wrapping side commands, wrapping side tasks, and you don't even know if what kind of argument is being passed in. So it makes using it easier. The only things to watch out for is if you are using in this file, right? You want to make sure all the types are being imported as types. All the types are being exported as types from wherever. There are some neat ESLint rules for that. which you can check in the repository. I'm going to be sharing the split. So each one is particularly talking about these two rules. The reason being is so these two rules about the ESLint, so you want those anywhere, everywhere. With TypeScript usage, people make a lot of mistakes of using the types as values, and those not only increase bundle size, but if there are certain pieces of code that aren't browser compatible, and you will have issues with Cypress and like weird errors that you don't know where they're coming from, but when you track it down, it's going to be from this task file. Sometimes it's inevitable. There's going to be some non-browser node-only kind of code if it's like a backend service you're working on. If that happens, usually I put the code that I need in Cypress in a separate module, right next to the original one, and then just import from that separate module so it's cleaner. Yeah, so usually you run into those problems with super large files that become a dumpster for everything. You're trying to import Cypress things from there. Uh, so you might run into problems with that, but otherwise you'll be just fine. That's all. Thanks.